Hello. Today I have a wonderful person that I'm going to be talking to, Ryan Wells, and he has a really interesting and I think important story. Unfortunately, it's a story that I think has to be told, and unfortunately, it's a story that happened. So, Ryan, why don't you tell us a little bit about you? Where are you from? What's your genesis story?
So my name is Ryan, as said. I'm originally from New York. I lived there my entire life. I now live in South Carolina. I've lived down here for about a year and a half, but I was originally lived in Orange County, New York for 27 years.
Okay, that's great. So, what brought you actually to South Carolina? I'm just curious.
So I moved down here because of family mostly. Everybody in my family slowly one by one moved down here, starting with my grandparents 20 years ago, and then my mom and dad, siblings, everybody moved down here, and I was the last one standing in New York. So figured I'll go give it a try down here, and I love it down here too.
Yeah, that's
So it
awesome.
wasn't a mistake.
That's really great. Well, the reason why we actually got connected is because you do have this really important and interesting story. And your story is actually it's an uplifting story. This is a story of triumph. This is a story of battling demons. This is a the
Mhm.
story that we want to hear about Americans taking control and charge of their lives. So why don't we turn back the clock a little bit? Let's go back to New York and take me to a place where you were, and let's get to where we are today.
Yeah. So why I'm here is I'm a recovering addict, and been through a lot of things in life. And when I came down to South Carolina, I found out I couldn't purchase a firearm. And those things correlate with each other strongly. So, oh God, I don't even know where to start. So, I mean, I grew up in a good family and everything. It was nothing family related. I guess it was more finding and hanging out with the wrong people in high school. Started doing pills, and as I led down and finished high school, I that slowly transforms into doing heroin, and that's what I was doing. Um, and I just led a bad life. A little bit of trouble here and there, nothing crazy, just getting caught stealing stuff and everything. But um, well, I could say now before I go too far that I've been clean for 5.5 years, almost 6 years now. Um,
Well, that's awesome, and congratulations for that. That's huge.
yeah, thank you. So I mean, I
So
used
here
for
you are, you're
almost 10.
like 17, 18 years old, just leaving high school, and now you're addicted to heroin, you're addicted to hard drugs, and that's what you're
Yeah.
using. And then you were on that path, like you said, maybe some petty crime, nothing felonious, nothing violent. So like, okay, you don't have a complete squeaky clean record, but nothing that's really shocking. That's like, okay, petty crime. Um, so how long were you on that path for? So you were a user, you were on heroin. What made you, I guess, how long were you on that path, and then what made you, change your ways?
So I was on that path for close to 10 years. Like I said, it started in high school, and even though I upgraded to heroin, you're still doing pills, which is still the same thing, Oxycontin and stuff like that. So, um, what led me to getting clean was so I used to be a truck driver, which I found out was a bad combination of things to do, be a drug addict and want to drive heavy machinery.
Sure.
Um, so I got caught driving while high. Actually not in a truck, my personal vehicle, but when you have a commercial driver's license, they take it seriously no matter what. And they put me in jail for about 7 months. And that is what changed my tune to get clean. I've been clean since the day I went to jail. And yeah, so I realized I'm either gonna wind up in prison for the rest of my life or dead, and I didn't want to be dead. Pretty
Sure.
easy choice to make there. It's not, it sounds easy, but it's not easy.
So then you were in prison. And then
Jail.
after that, did you get involved? Jail. You're right.
Yes.
Okay. You were in
Big
jail.
difference.
Yep. No, no, no. You're right. You were in jail, and were you enrolled in any rehab programs, or was this jail partnered with some sort of a drug program, or how did that all go down?
No, it wasn't. It was a little terrible old school jail up in the mountains of New York, and they were not supporting you with any of that. So, but I went to many facilities, rehab facilities before going to jail. And, I did learn and know the methods of how to deal with being sober. I mean, when you're an addict and you're in and out and living the life, most addicts wind up going to rehab many, many times before they straighten stuff out. And they do. They teach you everything you need to know in rehab. It's just applying it.
Sure. And that's like a
So
muscle
the time
memory
came
thing.
where I decided to apply it.
Sure. So you came out of jail, you're pretty much reformed, and then fast forward to, I guess, where we find out that this past of yours is now, hanging over your head.
Yeah. So I moved to South Carolina, as I said, about a year and a half ago now, and I've been around firearms my whole life, which is where we're getting to here. So I moved down to South Carolina, and you can buy a handgun without a permit down here. There's no waiting period. There's no anything. So, my father had a handgun permit in New York, and I remember the process he went through to get it and how
Sure.
strict they were. And I was like, well, I could just go buy a handgun down here. I don't need any reason. I just go to the store and get one. So I tried to do that and found out that I cannot purchase a firearm through the NICS check, which surprised me. And I had no idea why, because I'm not a felon.
So, and that's the when we you made the very important distinction that you went to jail, you didn't go to prison, right? So we're talking
Yep.
about some nuanced things here, but so your crime when you got your OUI, that wasn't something that could be lead to a sentence larger than a year, right? Or longer than a year.
No, no,
Okay,
it
so
was not.
that's not a disqualifier there.
Nope.
And you've been clean and sober, you said, for nearly 10 years.
Six
So
years.
6 years. Okay, yep, 6 years clean and sober, full. Um, that's not a disqualifier there.
No.
So then what did you do? So you got this NICS denial, and what did you find out from there?
Well, so they, I went to a local pawn shop and they were pretty helpful. I'm not sure how it would go anywhere else necessarily. From the research I've done, I guess a lot of the dealers, the FFLs and stuff will point you and tell you what to do for the most part. But so the guy said, hey, go online, go on this website, and you could request the reason to find out why you were denied, which is, the FBI's website for NICS and all that. I put in the information and they send me back a reply that says for mental health stuff. And I'm like, okay, that's kind of weird, but um so they then sent a follow-up email after a little back and forth, and they said, so you have to deal with New York for this. And I was like, well, I've had mental health issues in the past, and now we're looking at same thing 6+ years ago, even longer for any time I went to a hospital for whatever the case may be in terms of my mental health. And I'm like, this does not seem right. Um, and then next thing, I'm going down this rabbit hole with New York and finding out that they're the reason I can't purchase a firearm 6 years later in a different state. I'm just like, what is going on? And I had no idea what was going on until I actually got a hold of New York too. So NICS and the FBI didn't even necessarily clarify all of it. So yeah.
So now what did we learn? So you finally got with New York, and then what did New York tell you? What did they say?
So they say, um, yeah, you can't, you don't have firearms rights. You've been to a hospital for mental health issues, and and that's about it. So, and they say, well, we have the information, you can request it, and then you request it, and they don't actually send it to you. They tell you where you've been, and then they tell you to take it up with the hospital to get more information. It's basically like a big chase of nothing. It's like chasing your tail. Nobody wants to tell you exactly what it is. Um, so then they're like, well, here are the hospitals you were at, call them. And then when you get everything squared away, here's this big form of that you have to submit to us called a core application, certificate of relief. This big, huge form, and you have to give us, everything, every piece of information about your life, and we'll go from there, essentially.
Okay. Now, those hospital stays that you had, those weren't court order, were they? They weren't like you got
Nope.
picked up when you were stealing something. These were voluntary stays, right? You went and said, "I need help," right?
That's exactly what it was. I had tendencies, as some people put it, of hurting myself, and that's where I went. I went to the hospital for help because that's where people go for help.
So you identified a problem and you didn't want to do harm to yourself or others,
Yeah,
and you
absolutely.
went and you sought help, which is what we're told to do. And
Yes.
then New York turned around and said, because you did the right thing, right? We'll say the right thing,
Yes.
which is to get help when you feel that you need help. You were tending to your mental health. They turn around and they put you in a database as a disqualified person to
On a
where you,
federal level.
on a federal level, for a voluntary stay or a voluntary amount of help, which meet none of the statutory elements on the federal or even the state level, correct?
Yeah. Yes, that's exactly what it was. Is um I drove myself to the hospital and walked in the front door and said, I need help. And because of that, and not to mention nobody told me, I'm finding out, like I said, many, many years later in an entirely different state, I can't buy a firearm because of it. So I did do that on two different occasions. Sought help twice, and it's crazy because what it makes me feel now is that I would have never went and got help if I knew I would be losing rights because of it.
Right.
I would
So
have
you
dealt with whatever I needed to do, and that is not the right way to go about that at all.
right, you did the right thing, you sought help, and not only did you do the right thing trying to get help, you actually straightened out your life in the end of this portion of the story.
Yeah.
And here you are, a testament of perseverance. And now your reward of this is you're not able to own a firearm. I just wanted to kind of scaffold the message that way. That's kind of the way I got it.
That is exactly what it is. Yes.
Okay, so now where do you stand in your process? Because now you get this, you said this big form that you've got to fill out in order to get repatriated with your rights. So what's going on with that? How's that going?
Terrible. It's so I've been working on it now. I found out that I couldn't get a firearm about a year ago now, just shy of. It's almost, yeah, the end of May was when I tried. So I'm going on, 11 months right now.
Okay.
And I have gotten essentially nowhere with it. So like I said, it's called the Certificate of Relief for New York, and they have you do the basic stuff for anything NICS, which is, get your prints done and get background checks and stuff, and that's fine. Um, but the rest of the stuff is they want all your medical records, um, anything from any hospital, if like in my case, any rehab I've been to, any documentation you can find about yourself at all within the last 20 years. So they tell you the two places that you went that the reports came from, but not anything else. So you have to go back and find that yourself. So it's feels set up to fail, and then on top of that, they want letters of recommendation from people and um just loads and loads of information that has taken me, I haven't even submitted the actual application yet. I'm still working on it, but hopefully soon here. However, it's and this is why I never got a handgun permit in New York either, because they set it up and make it so convoluted and confusing that I see why people wouldn't follow through with it. You have to, like, basically, it seems like you have to give them your firstborn child, is how I feel about it, to get anywhere. So, and they don't help you with it at all. It's, here's the information, good luck.
Right. So you're basically still in the process of aggregating, what you need to submit. So we don't even know
Yes.
what your status is. Um, so you obviously have done quite a bit of research on this, and that's how you and I got connected, is because you were
Mhm.
doing research on this, and somebody said, talk to this guy who's me.
Yes. Yep.
Right. And you and I chatted, and I was like, okay, I want to talk to you about this a little bit more. What what is your I guess your preconceived notions about going into this once you do finally submit your packet?
That it's total BS. That's that's what it is, honestly.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure what to expect. When I looked into it, I was like, this is definitely gonna take some time. I knew that, and I didn't, like I said, I didn't really know what was going on or what to do, and I've had to figure it out myself. And luckily, I found some other people online who are in a very similar situation for different reasons, but they all have lost their firearms rights due to mental health issues in New York, some way, somehow. So, yeah,
Okay. Now you said something that I thought was um it's kind of the crux of this whole thing, and it's a scary thing. You said, if I had known that seeking help would have done this to me, I wouldn't have gotten help at all, right?
yeah, yeah,
So now
absolutely.
what is your message to people that are struggling? So now you've got these two things, and we don't want to see people get hurt. We don't want to see people suffer.
Of course not.
So what would you say to somebody that would be similarly situated to where you were 6 years ago or 7 years ago? What would you tell you from the past or somebody else?
I mean, if you live in New York, I don't even have an answer for that, because I always was a huge advocate of people after recovering, people getting the help they need and doing what they need to do and seeking whatever help they need. I would always say support the homies getting sober. And getting sober has a lot to do with mental health. There's no doubt about that. But if you live in New York, I don't even have an answer unless you maybe have some provider that you really, really trust. But I wouldn't trust anybody. Now, they only, from my understanding, do this in New York, and I think there's something similar in California, but I can't speak on that. But anywhere else, in any other state, to my understanding, I would say to seek the help that you need, because they won't strip your rights from you. But even still, it makes me hesitant. Say I had something else happen in my life that I felt I needed to seek help for. It has left a permanent mark on me of, well, is this going to happen again for some reason? It's makes me not trust any healthcare providers, and that's not right. So, yeah, I don't even know what I would tell anybody. Honestly, I have no clue.
I
Seek help, but maybe not through a professional, which is doesn't help.
Yeah. Get out of state, maybe. Get
Yeah,
your help
that's
across the
the main
border.
one. Leave New York. Yeah.
don't don't get help in New York. And that's sad because this is a
Yeah.
gigantic barrier to care. And this is something that I've been tracking and finding that statistically people are like, I'd rather have my rights than actually deal with any underlying issues. Whereas,
Yeah.
the attitude that we should have is, let's take care of our mental health, let's take care of, and then let's sort everything out afterwards. Well, to sort everything out afterwards should be a pretty easy process, especially for people that were seeking voluntary help. And that's where I have an issue. You weren't adjudicated mentally
No.
defective. You weren't you know, you didn't have your day in court with due process.
No.
You said I need help, and then you got punished. So,
Well, that's
um,
exactly, I've been through all the criminal proceedings and stuff, and that's essentially what they feel like they're treating you like. It feels like I'm a felon when I'm not. And, that makes a huge difference in terms of doing crimes and stuff. When you become a felon, so much happens to you, and that's what this makes me feel like, which I avoided. Is I didn't go so deep that I was that bad, but here I am anyways being treated the same way.
sure, I got you. Well, Ryan, before we wrap up, is there anything else that you want to share with anybody that's, reading an article or listening in on this or watching this video? What would you want to share?
Um, I mean, we have you know, small group of people online going through the same thing. If you can find a way to get in contact, we can. If you look up on the New York Guns Reddit, anything regarding mental health, you'll probably find one of us. Um, and then if you post something on there, we will come to you essentially. But you can find us out there. If you ever wanted to message me directly, you can uh go to my message my Instagram, which is WELLSR47. So that's Wells R47 on Instagram. You can send me a DM, and I will help bring you to the other people going through this. But if I were to say anything to anybody, it'd be just, this is if you're in the same situation, it's a long process. So you can't get discouraged. You have to stick with it. And that's really it. If you get discouraged, you will never get your rights back. But if you don't, you will. You just have to stay on top of them. And outside of that, I mean, like I said, it's be careful what you do in New York.
Exactly. Well,
That's what it comes
Ryan,
down to.
I absolutely appreciate your time, and I'm gonna continue to follow you and your story because I think this is an important story to track and stay on top of. So thank you very much for your time, and I'm sorry that this is what brought us together. But congratulations on doing the right thing and being sober. And now here we are picking up the pieces. But thank you for
Yeah.
your time.
No, no, and then thank you. I mean, I like as we talked about a little bit before. Anybody that'll listen, I want to let them know. However that can be, this something needs to be done about this because it's unacceptable.
Sure. And anybody that's listening, watching, or whatever that's trying to get in touch with Ryan, if they can't find them, you can always email me, John at thepenpatriot.com. So that's a place where you can get me directly if no any other way. So Ryan, thank you so much and have a good rest of your day.
Of course, you too, John.